Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out our website, countrymusicmademe.com. There you can listen to all of our episodes and also sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive content and also stay up to date on all of our upcoming guests. Just head over to countrymusicmademe.com and hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on any streaming platform, so if streaming is your thing, just head over to your favorite, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow there as well. On today's episode, we are excited to welcome Brooks Hoffman and Austin G of Nashville-based duo SixForty1. Now, we talked to the boys about their formation while they were attending Murray State University, and we also talked to them about their musical upbringings individually, both growing up in Kentucky. So please enjoy our conversation with Brooks and Austin of SixForty1. You're both from Kentucky, and so was country music a big influence within your families, or was it sort of all genres for both of you?
Well, for me, country was a really heavy influence in my life. My hometown is Hopkinsville, Kentucky, so it's only an hour up the road from Nashville. So we basically grew up in Music City as it is. So I'll never forget listening to Shania Twain and Rascal Flatts. I mean, they were my biggest influence growing up. I had every Rascal Flatts CD. I wanted to sing like Gary LeVox, just like anybody else did. But yeah, I'm sure there's a recording somewhere floating around the internet of me in my diapers with a cowboy hat on, singing Any Man of Mine out of a microphone, a karaoke microphone. My mom likes to show that around every chance she gets. So yeah, country music's always been a huge influence in my life for sure.
Didn't you do that last week?
I still do it around the house. So.
No, I grew up definitely a mixed genre family, but my parents were massive. Toby Keith, Big and Rich, when they popped off, that's all we listened to. I remember getting a signed CD because they went to some grocery store near our home. So my parents brought me home a signed Big and Rich CD. So. But early on, my dad's cousin, we called him Uncle Marty. He was in a pretty successful band in the 90s and early 2000s. And I kind of listened to that organically just because I really liked his music. And, I kind of knew from an early age that you could do this.
Right. And your uncle, the band he was part of was the Freddie Jones Band. Now, I looked them up and it looked like over the years, they sort of went through quite a few members and some turnover and some turmoil at times. So within that, with what you saw from the band, did that ever discourage you from this path because of maybe the trouble that you saw that band go through?
Yeah, and I think they were in a really tough genre. I'm not even sure what their genre was, but it was kind of like adult rock, alternative rock. But yeah, I never thought I'd be in a band professionally growing up. I always thought I'd go to school and get a job. And, all the stars aligned once we graduated college and everything just kind of worked out perfectly.
Right. And now within your families, Brooks, I saw that for the all-night video shoot, I believe, you filmed it at your granddad's farm in Springfield, Kentucky. And so growing up, was that farm a big part of your childhood?
100%. Basically grew up there.
Still is.
Yeah, still is. I've probably gone there more in the past 2 years than I did my entire childhood.
Oh, wow.
So you get older, you appreciate things a little bit more. So yeah, a major part of growing up.
We just did our last writers retreat out there at that same spot. So we utilize that spot a whole lot. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's what you'd say, like 500 acres, 100 acres.
Yeah, something like that around there.
It's a big plot of land. It's got like a little man-made pond and a cottage. So any way we can use that spot, we can. I mean, that was the first show we played after we formed SixForty1, a little 4th of July party Brooks' family has out there annually. So yeah.
Oh, nice. And Austin, for you, you mentioned jumping up and singing Shania Twain when you're like 3 years old. Now, within that, was your family musical? Is that where you drew that from? Or was that something just different for you that you just gravitated towards?
It's kind of a mix, honestly. I mean, my mom, she grew up singing, but nothing big. I mean, just church in middle school. My grandmother, she played piano for the church that I went to. So one of those typical Southern Baptist families. And my brothers can sing. I was just the first one that actually acted upon it. I did choir and theater growing up as well, so I was that kid. I did that in sports, so I was anything to stay out of the house. So yeah, I mean, they definitely influenced me with the musical choices, and just that overall ability to chase your dream and do whatever you want to do. But as of like actually musicians, no, not at all.
I didn't know Jackson could sing.
Oh yeah, he can sing, he can rap. I have an 11-year-old brother, and he's in that rap phase right now. So he's writing rap lyrics on his backpack journal.
Oh, nice. So will you ever maybe include him on a track to get sort of that country rap involved?
Hey,
100%.
Yeah, he might hop in about 10 years from now and be a little co-producer. You never know.
Little G.
Yeah, little G on the track.
That's amazing. And now, Brooks, for you, I think it was your Meemaw that I saw attended your Whiskey Jam show back in December of 2017.
Yeah.
Now, talk about her and just the influence of her growing up and on this journey.
Man, some of my earliest memories are just of singing. I used to sing the Kit Kat song just at her house, and she used to sing to me as a baby, the Jesus Loves Me, Yes I Know. So those are some of my earliest memories. And she's always been, of my entire family, both of our families have been so supportive of us. But one of my first songs I ever wrote, you might even be getting asked, about the first songs we wrote, but
I will, don't worry.
Yeah, she gifted me a red truck this past year for my birthday, because she just found it sitting on a shelf at some department store. She's like, you remember when you wrote that song, when you were 9? So she's always been there, my Meemaw. And she got up on stage at Whiskey Jam, so that was cool.
Yeah, she was the star of the show.
That's amazing. And now that song, is that the one that you wrote because of your guitar teacher, or is that song about the red truck even earlier before that?
No, that's because I was taking guitar lessons at the time, and Dennis, my guitar teacher, was about 9.
Shout out Dennis.
Shout out to Dennis. He's still playing around Louisville. Incredibly talented dude. He said, you know what? You're going to write a song. Like, I'm going to force you to be creative. I can see it in you. I want you to do this. And I just remember after every lesson standing in our, right in front of our front door, my mom saying, yeah, he's going to be my little country star and move to Nashville one day. And that was all the way back then. So I was like, what's the most country thing I could think of? And the song was called I'm Going to Drive My Truck to Texas. Never been to Texas at that point. I don't know where it came from.
That's the country's thing you think of.
That's amazing. And so when you started guitar lessons, was that because you were really drawn to playing, or was it just something to do back then that you thought would fill some time?
I think when I first started playing instruments, it's just something I wanted to try. But I kind of caught on really quickly. I played the drums, and I wish I would have stayed with keyboard lessons. But guitar especially, I really locked into and loved early on. And
for Austin, I saw for you, it was more Guitar Hero that sort of influenced your guitar playing along the way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, in middle school, there was this place called the Teen Center in my hometown. And it's basically where parents drop their kids off that wasn't the mall, just to kill time. So there was video game stations, those pool tables, basketball hoops, anything like that. And that's when Guitar Hero first came out. And there were stations set up of people playing. I was like, what is this game with a guitar attached? And I was instantly hooked, and I ended up beating the game on expert. And I was like, man, if I could do that, I can play the real thing. That's not that much harder. And boy, was I wrong. I started doing lessons shortly after that, and just learning the chord, 4 country chords, and then I taught myself the rest from there. But yeah, shout out to video games. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for letting me play video games for 2 hours a day growing up.
And so being involved in musical theater and singing in church, when was the point where, music became something more for you, as something that you did want to do outside of just those activities?
Yeah, I mean, so growing up doing that stuff, it put that bug in my ear of, theater school. Like, it was junior year of college, and I was already looking at New York University, some other universities up in, Northeast that specialize in acting, because I really enjoyed it. And what that brought, I've always felt a sense of belonging in that group, singing and acting and stuff like that. And senior year happened. I was playing baseball and I was getting pretty decent at that as well. And, I didn't want to do theater anymore. I was over that phase, and choir, I didn't do choir anymore. But it got me into college. And once I met Brooks, it really made it shed a light on making it a career, because I've always wanted to do something in singing. I knew I was pretty decent at it. My parents didn't force me, but they're like, hey, you might need to go to school for something actually, just in case something doesn't work out. I was like, all right, I'll listen to you. So I went to Murray, and thank God I did.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get to that point, talking about first songs, I think I saw, Austin, that the first song you wrote was one called Repeat for the Western Kentucky State Fair's Country Showdown. Now, is that true? Did I read that right?
Yeah, so it wasn't my technical first song.
Okay.
My first one was senior year of high school. I wrote a song for this girl I asked out. I sat on the truck bed and sang it to her, and she said yes. And 2 weeks later, she said no. So it obviously wasn't that good of a song. My first song I played in front of people was Repeat at the Western Kentucky State Fair. I think there's a video on YouTube still of it.
Oh, okay.
I think I sang Repeat, and I try to get the crowd hyped up as much as I can, all 10 people. But doing that on stage to an audience like that wasn't theater or choir, it was my own song and my own, guitar playing. It opened up my mind even more of like the possibilities of doing this professionally.
Right. And now, Brooks, for you going through high school, I saw two names, Stephen Hughes and Mitch Siriano. I think that's maybe how you say it. And back in 2017, you were saying it was going to be your last time on stage with them. And so talk about your journey with them and sort of your high school band phase that it looked like you went through.
Yeah, we played in bands all throughout grade school, different bands up until we got to high school. And those are my boys and a couple of my best friends, and definitely continuing to play music with them kept that fire, deep down for me wanting to play music. And then we took a couple years off because I went to college in Murray and they stayed in Louisville, Kentucky, and went to U of L. I met Austin, we started playing music together, and Mitch was like, what the hell, dude? Like, I thought that was us, man. I thought we were supposed to be playing music together. I was like, we got one more chance to, I promise you that, before we find a band. So my brother, his fraternity put on this event every year, and they invited us to play. We didn't have a band at the time, and I asked Steven and Mitch to do it, and it was one of our favorite memories.
I remember that. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And was one of the bands called Lift?
The Lift. Yeah. Yeah, how are you finding all this stuff?
Let's go.
Doing your research. The Lift.
I love it. So what was that? Was that one of the later bands, like one of the last ones or one of the first ones, or where did that fit in?
That was high school.
What style of music?
It was just cover. Yeah, I just wrote random stuff, and we tried to record some stuff on our own, and it might be on Facebook. It's terrible, but I always, had the ability to come up with lyrics. So that's where it started. And actually being able to record with those guys for the first time, probably our sophomore year of high school. We didn't know what we were doing, but it was exciting to make a product and then listen to it. So did that for the first time with those guys.
Yeah. Was that something you were doing in your parents' basement? Did I read when you were recording, just kind of doing it yourself in your parents' basement with what you had?
Yeah, I ended up, deciding like, I want to do this. It sounds really exciting to me just to be able to record and have a finished product. So there was one summer going into my senior year of high school. I was lifeguarding that year, so I had a bunch of time, in the morning or in the afternoon, and pretty lax schedule during the summers. So I'd wake up, and if I was off work that day, I'd work on a song the entire day, and I'd finish a song. And it was a really fun summer. None of them were good, but it was fun.
And so how has that experience helped you going into the studio now when you're producing a song? Has it given you a bit of a leg up in sort of understanding a bit more than you would have if you wouldn't have done that in your parents' basement?
Yeah, I wish I would have been better at it back then. There's a lot of people who are very good at a young age at recording music and producing music, 16, 17, 18 years old. And I was nowhere near that good. Definitely better now, but I think it kind of gave me that instinct of what I wanted to hear, when a different dynamic, when it comes to the song, changing dynamics, and just wanting to hear a certain sound at a certain spot. It definitely helped that process.
Right. And now, Austin, let's talk about, I think it was 2011, maybe, or maybe 2012. You auditioned for The Voice, I believe I saw. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. We both ended up auditioning for The Voice. I know you did American Idol too or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we both got cut. I mean, I was 16 years old, went to Memphis, Tennessee, and stood in line all day long, went into the room. There was about 10 of us total, and we would stand up and sing a verse and a chorus of a cover song, and mine was God Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts. And I was the only person out of that group that got called back, and I did not get called back after the second round, but it was a great experience, and it opened my eyes to the world of entertainment. I mean, that's lights, cameras, producers. I mean, that's a real thing. And from a young age, I was honestly terrified, coming from a small town in Kentucky, going to Memphis to sing in front of producers. But yeah, I probably wouldn't do it again, but it was a good experience back then.
Did either of you have an understanding of who you were as an artist when you had those experiences?
No clue. Absolutely no clue. I was singing most of the cover songs at the time.
We were karaoke singers at that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're still, slowly evolving into us as artists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's talk about that for a second before we jump back to, you guys meeting, because that's something I wanted to talk to you about. You had your debut EP in 2016. And now when you listen to that EP and you listen to your more recent stuff, you can definitely hear that evolution from, it feels like back in 2016, you were trying harder to be country, whereas now you're not trying so hard. And so within that evolution, when do you say this is who we are? Is there ever that point, or are you forever evolving within this journey?
Yeah. Recently we were asked, if there was a piece of advice, what would you give to new artists, young artists? And what I would say is, at each stage, we've been very excited and proud of what we've been working on. So as long as that's happening and you have that mindset, you are the artist you're supposed to be. So, we listen to different music, and a lot of those different influences come out through the years. You hear something else, something new comes out, and you're like, wow, I kind of want to incorporate that in our songs now. So music evolves, everything, pop, country, it's all constantly evolving, and it's fun when it does, because you get to challenge yourself every time.
Right. I guess that's a big thing to it, right? Is continuing to challenge yourself. Like, it feels like there's always this divide maybe within music where there's this group of fans who say, I love your music now, so don't change. But then there's a group of fans who say, don't stay the same, keep evolving. I want to hear new stuff from you. So is that a line you have to toe within your music?
Yeah, I mean, but just like with everything else, we're human too. Everybody changes, especially over a 5-6 year period. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago. And same with our music. We're not in that same creative headspace that we were 5 years ago, trying to go that lane of country. Now we're trying to make our own lane, and we're more comfortable with ourselves as individuals and as a duo. We put a lot of miles on SixForty1 over the years, and we kind of know what we want to sound like. Yeah, no pun intended. We put a lot of work into what we want to sound like, and it's always a fun process, especially bouncing ideas off each other. You can all, the possibilities are endless with two guys instead of one.
Right. And now let's talk about the beginning of when you met. So you're taking part in Mr. MSU at Murray State. Now, tell me about this competition. Is this like a serious thing where the winner is kind of held up on this pedestal, or is it kind of just a fun thing that's held every year?
Tell you what, if the winner wins and they're single, man, they ain't gonna be single for long.
Yeah, it's homecoming king times 10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, everybody in that competition is nominated by an organization. We were nominated by a fraternity. Most people were nominated by a fraternity, which we were. So we did it because our fraternity brothers knew we could both sing. That's the only reason why we cared to do it, other than to support the philanthropy.
And we were single. So
and we're still trying to make our mark on the ladies in college. So the AO Pi, the sorority there, put it on, and it was a great time. It was a full week of hard work. So definitely, a little stressful, especially in college. And you get up on stage in front of 2,000 people, and you're just, dancing and singing and dressing up in a suit and strutting around. So a little out of my element, at least.
Mine too.
But it was a good step. And if it weren't for that dress rehearsal, that the day before the show, Austin was playing in the back room, and I asked him what he was going to play, and he said I might be playing an original song. And that's kind of when we started talking about writing together.
And so how long did it take for you guys actually to jump in a room together and to start writing?
It wasn't until that next summer that we wrote our first song together. I had an internship. I went to school for occupational safety and health, and I had an internship in Louisville, Kentucky, his hometown, coincidentally. And we met at a fraternity party at the end of the year, that sophomore year of college. And I was like, hey, I'll be in your hometown this summer working. He's like, well, you got to come over. We got to write sometime. I'm like, okay, cool. Not thinking anything of it, just passing by. Here, he say, she say. But first day on the job, in my cubicle, I get a text from Brooks saying, hey, after work, come over to my house. And I did. And we wrote a song that night. We talked for hours and just messed around on guitar. I think we recorded a cover too, just to see if we can even mesh together. And we wrote a song. It wasn't the best song, but the vibe was there and the chemistry was there. And so I went over to his house 2 to 3 times a week that summer, and we would write. And then towards the end, like Brooks said earlier about recording in his basement, that's what we did that whole first summer. And we put out, so some of those songs that were on those first EPs were on SoundCloud beforehand, because that's what we did. We recorded in the bathroom one song and put it up. And turns out one guy from Nashville, an executive, was like, hey, if you ever want to make an actual production, let me know and you can record in Nashville. So we hopped on that real quick.
So before that first time writing that summer, I believe you both were playing sort of open mic nights and doing your own thing. But did either of you have this vision of a career in music at that point as a solo artist before you came together?
I think we both kind of hoped like, oh, maybe we'll get famous before we graduate college. Maybe something will happen. Maybe word will spread, between colleges or whatever and friend groups. But it wasn't realistic at that time. I don't know. I just wanted to play. I wanted to play in town and play shows, but wasn't thinking about touring. I wasn't really even thinking about recording music for real in a studio. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, there was an event in my hometown every Christmas. A songwriter here in town puts on, so he invites his other songwriting buddies, and I got to open up for him one of those benefits, and I sang repeat. And I got that songwriting bug, so I wanted to see if I can write songs in Nashville. But I've always wanted to sing. But yeah, like Brooks said, it was never like an actual possibility, because you don't know how to get into the business, especially in college in another state. Like, how do you tackle Nashville when you're not even there? So we just had to graduate first and then see what happens.
Right. And now one of the influential people, I believe, at that start of the journey when you began to release music was Alex Torres. He approached you and started working with you and kind of pushed you towards recording some more professional music. And so talk about him and how you connected and what he meant for that beginning journey. Would you be where you are today without him?
That was definitely our first foot in the Nashville, and we got to record with guys who are super talented, guys that play on award shows, and they are the utility guitar player for Kenny Chesney, and crazy, it's just kind of crazy stuff. And one of them still plays on our music today, Tim Galloway. So no, he definitely helped get our foot in the door. So we're grateful for those first 2 EPs. At the end of the day, it's not what we want to sound like, but we're definitely grateful that it got us to Nashville, for sure.
And now those first few EPs were you guys. They were co-writes between you two. You hadn't quite moved into the Nashville co-writing scene. I saw that in 2018, Maybe I Might. It seemed like the first co-write that you had, and that was with Driver Williams, who is the guitarist for Eric Church, I believe. I hope I got all that information right.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
talk about meeting him, and was that sort of your first co-writing experience with him?
Yeah, so that was our first time writing with Driver. It wasn't our first actual co-write in town. We've wrote up until that point, but that was the first, I would say, like top-notch songwriter that we got to write with. And two green-eyed guys from Kentucky. I mean, we know Eric Church, like, and the fact that we get to write with his guitar player, we were ecstatic just to be in the room. And we brought that idea in that day, and he loved it. And we finished it and put it out. And we've written with him a few times since. But yeah, it's always cool getting to hear bigger songwriters' stories and where they came from and how they got to this spot. Because I mean, you're all in the same room for a reason that day. So it's always cool knowing their struggles and how they navigated. So it's, we take something from every write we go to.
Right. And now with a solo artist, it might be easier for them to sort of branch out and co-write because it's just them. But with the chemistry that you two have together, was it a little difficult off the start, bringing other people in and sort of opening up to them and allowing it to be this organic experience?
We're better songwriters now because of it. Just because we realized we had to sit in there and, take a back seat for a second and learn. There's some people who are amazing, like they were born to write songs, and I believe we were too. But man, there are some people who are the Van Gogh of songwriting, and when you step into the room with them, it blows your mind how good they are. But it just makes you a better writer, and we definitely found our crew of people, and it feels good because most of the time when you get in there with them, you're gonna get something that you like. But that's all. That was a long process to get to that point. That was, 2.5 years, 3 years just to get there. So, up until that point, you're writing with different people almost every time, and you're just learning who you are as a writer, and you're learning how to communicate. Maybe when you like something, maybe when you don't like somebody's idea, and also how to, meet in the middle. So it definitely made us better writers.
And is it an interesting process of leaving your ego at the door so you're not coming in with this inflated head of, I have to be the best songwriter in here, but also not totally leaving your ego behind? Because like you say, you want to be able to speak up and say, I don't like that idea, but you don't want to take it so far that the other writers like, oh, I can't write with them, they're not listening to me. Is there a balance there?
Yeah, for sure. And with co-writing, it's also less pressure. Like, you don't have to be the best at everything every day. And you're not. And just be frankly honest. I mean, one day you could be the lyric guy, and then the next day you could be the melody guy. Next day you could just be the sitting back and agree with things guy. Like, it just depends on the day. It's, if anything, we still need to bring our ego in there a little bit. I wouldn't even call it ego. I would just call it confidence in what we want to sound like, to be able to say, no, I don't like that line, or that melody could be different. If anything, just bouncing off of each other, like what part of our stories can we fit into this song today? Because we each have our own life and upbringing, and songs are supposed to be a representation of your life and your artistry. And since there's two of us, it's a little more difficult some days to get both of our stories into a song, but when it works, it really works. And I think the fans can tell.
Right. And now when you made the move to Nashville, like you were saying before, coming from Kentucky, you weren't quite sure how to do it, how to make that transition. And so when you finally decided to move to Nashville, what was the feeling? Was it scary, or at that point, were you confident enough that that was the right move?
I remember talking to Austin. I was like, dude, we're not even in Nashville, and we're, we belong there, and we're some of the best writers in Nashville. And of course, at that time, we weren't. That was in college and before we moved. But it's all part of that confidence and that belief. And, you do have to leave your ego at the door, but you also have to be like, I think we can do this, and I think we can write some cool stuff that, can build a fan base. But when we first moved to town, I think we originally just signed a 6-month lease. And funny enough, the rent on that lease was $12.82. So we each paid $6.41 a piece. Our first apartment in town. It seems like all the stars aligned at that point, but we're still like, 6 months. This is crazy what we're doing. We're just, packing up everything and leaving home to chase a dream. People don't do that where we're from. So it was definitely a little scary at first, but we settled in after a couple months. And, after 3 or 4 months, we ended up meeting our manager. So it all worked out.
And when was the point where you thought, okay, this was the right move? Because you've had the chance to tour with some great artists. You've been able to put out more music, sort of constant music. And so was there a point where you could kind of relax and say, okay, this was the right move. We're in a bit of a groove now. Let's go.
Yeah. I think I can, me personally, I think I can pinpoint the exact moment. It was when we met our manager, Aaron Kaiser. We put out a song called Plain Crazy in 2018, put a little sponsored ad on Instagram, nothing crazy. And he just so happened to see it. And he slid in our DMs like anybody does nowadays. And he was like, hey, when are y'all playing next? So we told him we'll be in Louisville, Kentucky playing this Thursday. So he's like, all right, I'll be there. So he drove up and watched us play to a fraternity party, basically. And we got pizza after. And the next week we had more gigs with him. He's like, hey, I want to be your manager. I want to take you guys, the places that you want to go and that we can all go together. And we started getting more shows come in. So we were like, man, I think we made the right decision here. It's funny what $100 can do on an Instagram ad. It's the stars definitely aligned, and we're super grateful for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that live performance, like when you guys get in the writing room and you mesh and it feels good, but when you jumped on stage together, what was that experience like? Because that's an important part of it too, right? When you're in front of a live crowd, is ensuring that they feel the energy between the two of you. So was that a bit of a process to work out, or did you feel really comfortable with each other on the stage right away?
We've always been pretty comfortable on stage, whether it's sitting down at an open mic night and you're just playing on a bar stool, or you finally get a chance to run around on stage, which that was probably one of the first shows that Aaron came to, that we were energetic, running around, interacting with the fans. So we've always loved that part of getting in front of the crowd, making sure that everybody's having fun, and we have fun doing it.
And is it a good thing to have both of you on stage? So when you get on a bigger stage, you can sort of each take half of it. You're not just one artist trying to play this whole stage.
Yeah, we fill up twice the room. So it's good to have somebody, either both of us running around the stage, so it looks like the whole thing's taken up, or, one of us plays guitar and the show is not as stagnant as a solo artist would be, because somebody else is running around the stage. So.
Right. And now let's talk about 2020. When you get there, you've been in town for only a couple of years. You've released some music, but as a new group who's trying to make this happen, what did 2020 mean? Because you did still put out music, and on social media, you seem to stay pretty positive. So behind the scenes, was it still a positive atmosphere and just saying, let's write, let's put out music, let's do what we can do, even though the situation sucks?
Oh God, it was terrible, but you do learn a lot about yourself when you're going through what everybody did, but as two musicians who kind of have one shot at this, when you lose a year, that really sucks. But we learned a lot about our artistry. I don't think we'd be tackling the angle that we are now if it weren't for 2020. And, we did a lot of interviews and, live streams and stuff. So you get used to being in front of a camera a little bit more. So there was still a lot of growth in 2020. And most of that was because you just had to push through that terrible feeling of feeling like you can't do anything about it. You want to get out there, you want to play shows, but luckily we were still able to release music and keep everything moving. So,
piggybacking off of you, I think it really taught us to just show up regardless, no matter what, even if mentally we're not there or something's going on in our lives, like still show up every day, even if nothing's on the calendar, and work on something and get better, because there will come a day when it's all over and you got to go back out there, and you can't backtrack. So it taught us to really show up every day.
Even when you have a kidney stone.
Yeah. Learning to write one day with a guy, his name is Matt Alderman. He's a really great writer in town. I'm sitting in the room and I'm like, man, my back is hurting.
I think I'm dying.
So I was like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom. Obviously nothing happened. Went back and it just kept getting worse. I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I got to go. I can't. Something's wrong. Not even an hour later, I'm hovered over the toilet like I'm going to die. I had a kidney stone. I was trying to write a song.
Oh, man. So coming into 2021 and started right here, your new EP, when was that sort of created? Was that music that was formed throughout 2020 and sort of early 2021?
Yeah, exactly that.
Just like this, over Zoom.
Yeah, over Zoom. Half of it was over Zoom. And then we ended up getting into the studio, and that's kind of when we formed this alliance with our buddy Matt, our producer Matt, and our buddy Mason Thornley. And man, we've just been on a groove the past couple of years together, and hopefully a lot of those songs we've been writing are going to see the light of day pretty soon. But definitely 2020, getting comfortable writing on Zoom, and then finding the groove with Matt and Mason. That's where it started right here. That EP came from.
And so when you're writing music now, because you're evolving as a group, are you ever pulling from material that you had maybe a couple of years ago? Or when you're looking at new music, is it always sort of created in the here and now because this is where you are as artists?
That's a great question. So at this point, we usually try to create as we go, new ideas and new, processes of how to create. But every now and then, we'll send each other old voice memos or old demos like, hey, that melody of this song was cool. We're not going to use the song. Maybe we should think about reusing that melody somewhere. And so stuff like that happens sometimes, but not as much as you might think. Usually it's just what can we create in the room that day. So that's the fun part.
Right. And do you ever think you'll challenge yourself and bring back those first songs that you guys wrote as teenagers and say, let's challenge ourselves to try and turn these into something that sound like us now?
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. If we just had the itch to do it, we would do it. Probably not anytime soon, but
we could rewrite Texas.
Yeah, we could do Texas for sure. Do a Red Dirt album.
That's right. Exactly. And so what do things look like for the future? You mentioned you do have music that you would like to put out sooner rather than later. So how are things looking right now?
Yeah, right now we're just still, there's a lot of good ones. So it's hard to pick. So we're just trying to figure out what the project's going to look like and make sure it's a cohesive, album. And we just can't wait to get it out. I'm so excited to get it out.
And are we going to see maybe a single or two more from the current EP that you'll release, or is it sort of now looking towards new music?
Yeah, we're looking towards the new music now. I know we're trying to push Started Right Here as a single just for outlets and stuff like that, just for more exposure. But as far as like playlist pushing and stuff like that for other songs, it'd be great if they landed on one, but we're not pushing for a single song from the last EP. It's full force into the next project. So we're excited about that one.
And what does touring look like for you guys right now?
So we're kind of off right now, but we just got off the road with Tyler Rich. We did 9 dates with him, which was incredible. Hopefully we get to do that again. And we have a couple dates with Walker Hayes this summer. And just slowly adding more dates as we go.
And so what does that mean, not only to get in front of bigger crowds, but to also sort of join the Nashville community and meet these artists and become friends with these artists and be able to join that community as well?
It's crazy. It's so surreal. 2 dudes coming from Murray, Kentucky, to be able to play with Tyler Rich and Brantley Gilbert, Eli Young Band, and so on and so forth. I mean, we never thought we'd be taking the big stage with those artists at this moment in time. We thought we had some more, steps to get to, but we're just steady working and keeping our heads down and taking any opportunity we can. And we learn something from every artist we play with. It's really cool being included in that group now. We're just excited to see where that leads from there.
And within this journey, I think it's been about 4 years since you've been in Nashville. Now, how quickly does that go because of this journey and the fact, like you mentioned, it's sort of head down and do the work and move on to the next thing and the next thing. Does that make time go really quickly when you're sort of in that mindset?
It has gone by pretty quick.
Not 2020.
Not 2020, but especially a year and a half ago, or a year ago for you when you signed your deal.
Oh yeah.
It's been like living like you don't work a day in your life scenario, because we just get to do what we love. The past year and a half, it's definitely just flown by.
And is that an important mindset to keep? Is we're doing what we love because you can get wrapped up in what's the next thing, and I need this many listens and this many followers and this tour and that tour, to just appreciate we're in Nashville, we're doing what we love, and we're able to put food on the table.
Oh yeah, it's
very important.
It'll drive you crazy if you keep thinking of what else can I do to get to where I want to be quicker. It's all happening in the right time. We're here at the right time. We're going at the right pace that we need to be going. So it's hard to think that way a lot of the times, because you do see the industry around you flourishing, what it looks like on social media, and you just got to keep that mindset of keep your head down, show up every day. It's the right time regardless. Just have fun with it. Like if you quit having fun making music, you lose the authenticity.
Yep.
Thank you once again so much for listening, and thank you to Brooks and Austin for stopping by and sharing their story. Be sure to check out their EP, Started Right Here, wherever you stream your music. Please also be sure to check out our website, countrymusicmademe.com. There you can listen to all of our episodes and also sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive content and also stay up to date on all of our upcoming guests. Just head over to countrymusicmademe.com and hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on any streaming platform, so if streaming is your thing, just head over to your favorite, search Country Music Made Me, and give us a follow there as well. Thanks once again so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.